Good morning, Bulldogs. Talk a little bit today about Texas statehood and the Mexican American War. Okay, it's kind of a longer PowerPoint, but it's or Google slide. There's only four questions at the end, and you just kind of got to go through it step by point. So the first thing you want to do. These are the four questions that you'll be answering later. Why Texas wanted to be annexed to the United States, why some people did not want Texas to join the Union, why was the United States fought, why the United States fought a war with Mexico, and the result of the war with Mexico. Those will be basically what you have to learn. Okay, so let's see. With the Republic of Texas, the people of Texas had broken away from Mexico. They were now a free country, but they had some successes. They had a free government, successful elections. They had created the Texas Rangers, disbanded their army. They had new settlers coming in, and they had liberty from Mexico. But they had some problems. They didn't have proper services really in their country. They didn't have proper protection, and they had a lot of debt. So, one of those ways that they could solve this problem was by becoming part of the United States. And Sam Houston, we call that annexation. Annexation is to take. So, Sam Houston, the first president of the Texas Republic, sent delegates to Washington, D.C. to request, hey, we'd like to become a state. At the time, the president of the United States was Martin Van Buren, and he did not want to take Texas because if he did that, he was going to have to go to war with Mexico. And he says, nah, no thanks. In 1838, President Maribel Lamar becomes president of Texas. Houston and Lamar were opposites. Lamar did not want Texas to be annexed, so for 3 years there was no formal request by Texas to become part of the U.S. So that sort of idea stops when Lamar is in office. Well, then look who wins again in 1841, but the first president, Sam Houston. Immediately he wants to become part of the U.S. again. So why did the U.S. originally say no? Well, for one thing, it was the question of slavery was a problem. Texas allowed slavery. Many plantation owners used slaves to work in the cotton fields. Northern states did not want another slave state admitted to the U.S. Basically, the United States at this time had slave states and free states, and they were all worried about. It wasn't so much that the North was anti-slavery; it was that the North didn't want the South to have more political power than them. Sort of like if you think about the United States today and being red and blue America. Well, they didn't like adding another state that was slavery, and it would tip the balance of power. Number two, the relations with Mexico. U.S. President Andrew Jackson did not want a war with Mexico. And these are all the different people that were president at the time. You had Buchanan, then you had Andrew Jackson coming later. So still Houston is not getting his wish. What changed the mind? Well, what changed it was there was this concept going around, which was that manifest destiny, this idea that the settlers had the right to take all this land from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. This was a belief of the white settlers that it was inherently their land and God had given it to them. This concept is steeped in the same idea that gave the explorers from Europe the idea that they had the right to the land. So this idea was a big political movement in the United States at this time, and James K. Polk was a big believer in this. So that started to change public opinion in the U.S. And next thing you know, you had James Polk, who was not afraid of war with Mexico. So on December 29th, 1845, Texas becomes the 28th state of the United States. For this to happen, remember we talked about Texas having some debt. So they gave up some of their territory. And those territories made up parts of 5 other states. In return, the U.S. paid off Texas's debt. So they gave away a little bit of their land. They basically sold their land to pay off the debt. And then we've got Texas in the shape that it is today. So now the republic is no more. So there's no such thing as the Texas as its own country. Mexico is not going to like the idea that they're just going to take the Texas, because they're still fighting. Even though Texas gained its independence through the revolution, Mexico was still not really on board with that idea. So the U.S. sent thousands of soldiers to Texas to protect it from Mexico. U.S. soldiers attacked Mexico by land and sea. This is a painting that shows the attack of Veracruz, Mexico. The U.S. conquers Mexico's capital and ends the war. Now, obviously, in eighth grade, you're going to get a more detailed version of this, of the Mexican-American War. With the fall of Mexico City, Mexico knew it had to agree with terms of the United States to end the war, and you can see U.S. flag being raised over the capital in Mexico City. So, what were the results? Well, Mexican casualties, they had 25,000 U.S. You had 1,700 in combat, but 11,300 from yellow fever. Very high percentage of deaths. Um, how does the war end? There's a treaty called the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which on February 2nd, 1848, a treaty was signed to end the war. The U.S. gave Mexico $15 million, and Mexico gave the U.S. a huge amount of territory. Mexico is now about half the size it used to be, and you can kind of see here's where we were at the Louisiana Purchase, and then our original, and right in here in the Northwest, what we call the Northwest Ordinance. So we had all of this. This is all going to be part of the Mexican-American War. This was just the Texas part when they annexed it. But then after the war, they're going to get all this stuff that includes California, Arizona, Nevada, all this. So it was a large part that Mexico had to agree to, and then Mexico became more of what it is today. So you've got 4 questions. I tried to put the slides to tell you why did Texas want to be annexed. Look at slide 3, slide 8 and 9 will tell you why did the USA originally say no to annexation in Texas. And then this one, for some reason, I couldn't get it to highlight. I don't know what the problem was, but same deal here, slide 19 and 20 and slide 10. So just answer those questions and then submit it, and that's all you pretty much have to do. And that is, in short, a brief description of how annexation took place.